At 36, David Mercer found himself at a crossroads he never expected. Married for almost a decade to his wife, Lisa, they had built a life together centered around their small business, a quaint little cafe nestled in the heart of their suburban neighborhood. Each day, they divided responsibilities seamlessly. David managed the finances and customer relations while Lisa crafted the daily specials and decorated the cafe with her artistic flair. Their partnership extended beyond work. They were parents to two young boys, Ethan, 5, and Noah, 2, who filled their home with laughter and joy. David was meticulous, a trait that served him well both as a husband and father. Every evening, he made it a point to help Ethan with his coloring books, patiently guiding him as he experimented with different colors. On weekends, he orchestrated family outings to the local park, where he encouraged his sons to climb, explore, and play. He reveled in creating a loving home, believing that every moment mattered in shaping their future. The family dynamics seemed perfect, filled with warmth, laughter, and a deep sense of devotion. However, the surface of their idyllic life began to ripple during a community blood drive one sunny afternoon. David and Lisa had decided to participate, driven by a sense of civic duty. As they filled out the paperwork, David joked about how they were about to become community heroes. When he received his donor card, he glanced at the blood type noted, "Oh." It was an ordinary moment, yet something in the back of his mind stirred, a whisper of doubt. Later that evening, as they sat down to dinner, David found himself recalling his children's blood types, a seemingly trivial fact he had memorized during his fatherhood journey. But then, a chilling realization crept in. Ethan, their eldest, had been tested in a school health program and received a blood type of A. Noah, only 2, hadn't been tested yet, but Lisa had assured him she was O as well, which should have meant both boys should be the same as David's. The conflicting information sent David spiraling into disbelief. A knot formed in his stomach as he replayed the day's events in his mind, the laughter of his boys turning to whispers of doubt. He couldn't shake the nagging thought, if he was truly their father. Panic set in as he considered the implications of this unsettling possibility. How could he be the father of children with different blood types? With anxiety tightening its grip, David felt the ground beneath him begin to shift, his seemingly perfect life suddenly feeling fragile, poised on the edge of chaos. Determined to uncover the truth, he resolved to take matters into his own hands, setting in motion a series of events that would alter their family's life forever. Determined to find answers, David Mercer spent the following days in a fog of disbelief and anxiety. Every moment at home felt tainted by the growing uncertainty about his family's foundation. He couldn't look at Ethan and Noah without feeling the weight of the question looming over him. Were they truly his sons? The thought gnawed at him, stealing the joy from their playful interactions. After several restless nights, he devised a plan. During a routine visit to a local pharmacy, he spotted a discreet shelf stocked with home paternity test kits. His heart raced as he picked one up, the weight of the box feeling heavier than it should. He quickly grabbed 2, telling himself that it was just a science experiment for the boys, nothing more. The facade of a fun activity would allow him to gather the evidence he desperately needed without raising Lisa's suspicions. That evening, as Lisa took the boys to the park, David seized the opportunity. He retreated to the quiet of their home, the test kits spread out on the dining room table. He felt a mixture of dread and determination, knowing that the results would either confirm his worst fears or bring him relief. With trembling hands, he carefully swabbed the inside of Ethan's cheek, then Noah's, sealing the samples in their respective tubes. When Lisa returned home, the tests were tucked away, and David forced himself to act normal, laughing at the boys' antics as if nothing was amiss. The joy he feigned felt like a mask hiding the turmoil brewing beneath. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the silence of their bedroom echoing his inner conflict. What if he wasn't the boy's father? Would he still love them? The questions consumed him. The next few days crawled by, filled with a mixture of hope and dread. Each time the doorbell rang or the phone buzzed, David's heart raced, anticipating the arrival of the test results. He clung to the idea that there had to be a mistake, perhaps a mix-up at the blood drive or an error in the testing process. Finally, the day arrived. As he opened the envelope, his hands shook. The results were printed clearly: neither child was biologically his. The world around him blurred as he processed the devastating reality. It felt as if the ground beneath him had crumbled away. He staggered back, clutching the edge of the table for support, disbelief washing over him. David's heart shattered into a million pieces. How could this be happening? Thoughts raced through his mind, filling him with confusion and anguish. He loved those boys deeply, and yet now, everything felt tainted. He was thrust into a storm of emotions: betrayal, anger, and a profound sense of loss. The very foundation of his family, built on love and trust, now felt like a lie. In that moment, David knew he could no longer ignore the truth. The revelation shattered the illusion of his perfect life, and he was left with a decision to make, a decision that would change everything. In the days following the shocking revelation, David Mercer found himself grappling with an emotional turmoil that felt unbearable. He could barely focus on his work at the cafe, each smile from a customer or laugh from his boys now a painful reminder of the deceit he felt. Every family outing became a facade. He was present physically, but emotionally, he was miles away. Determined to confront the truth, David decided to keep the results of the paternity tests a secret for now. He felt an overwhelming need to collect more evidence before confronting Lisa. He was torn between the love he had for his children and the betrayal that clawed at his heart. One evening, while Lisa was busy preparing dinner, David concocted an elaborate plan to maintain normalcy. He suggested a fun family game night, eager to mask the brewing storm inside him. They played board games, laughter echoing off the walls, but David found it increasingly difficult to engage. He watched as Lisa effortlessly interacted with Ethan and Noah, her face lighting up in a way that only fueled his growing resentment. As the weeks passed, David became a master of pretense, crafting elaborate stories to distract himself from the gnawing anxiety. Yet, beneath the surface, a quiet storm brewed. He wrestled with the realization that the bond he had formed with the boys was based on a lie, an illusion that felt too fragile to hold. He couldn't shake the thought that they weren't really his. Driven by his inner conflict, David decided to buy 2 more home paternity tests, hoping that a different result would somehow ease his pain. It was a futile attempt to cling to a hope that was slipping away. He swabbed his children's cheeks once more, this time with a mixture of dread and desperation. Days turned into an agonizing wait for the results. As he waited, his relationship with Lisa became strained. He noticed the small things: the way she laughed a little too hard at his jokes, the way she lingered a little longer in the kitchen after dinner. It felt as if she were trying to cover something up, and the thought made his skin crawl. Finally, the moment arrived. As he opened the envelope, a sense of impending doom washed over him. The test results confirmed what he had feared: neither child belonged to him. His heart raced as he grappled with the weight of the evidence in his hands. In that instant, David knew he had to confront Lisa. The thought of her reaction terrified him, but the truth could no longer be ignored. The facade of their perfect life had crumbled, and he was left with a choice: to face the reality of betrayal head-on or to allow the pain to fester in silence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a shadow over their home, David prepared himself for the inevitable confrontation that would shatter their family forever. The confrontation was inevitable, a storm brewing on the horizon. David Mercer paced the living room, his heart racing and mind spinning with anger, betrayal, and sorrow. He glanced at the framed family photos on the walls, moments frozen in time that now felt like cruel reminders of a life built on deception. The laughter captured in those images seemed to mock him, and he knew he couldn't delay the reckoning any longer. When Lisa finally returned home, the house felt charged with an unspoken tension. The kids were in bed, blissfully unaware of the turmoil unfolding in their parents' lives. David steeled himself, determined to find the words that had eluded him for so long. He called Lisa into the living room, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging within him. "Lisa, we need to talk," he began, forcing the words out. She looked at him, her brow furrowing in confusion. "It's about the boys." The air felt heavy, and David could see the gears turning in her mind as she braced herself for what was to come. He took a deep breath and revealed the results of the paternity tests. "I got the tests back," he said, holding the envelope tightly in his hand. "Neither of them is biologically mine." At first, Lisa laughed nervously, a sound that cut through David like a knife. "What are you talking about? That can't be right." But as he handed her the papers, her laughter faded, replaced by disbelief that quickly morphed into something darker. "David, I can explain," she stammered, her face paling as the weight of his words sunk in. "You have to understand." But he couldn't listen. The betrayal surged within him like a tidal wave, overwhelming everything else. "Understand what, Lisa? That you've been lying to me? That I've spent the last 5 years raising children who aren't mine?" His voice cracked, revealing the pain that lay beneath his anger. "Please, let me explain," she pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. "It was 3 years ago. I made a mistake during a rough patch. I thought we were falling apart." The admission hung in the air, each word striking David like a blow. She continued, trying to justify her actions, insisting that the affair had ended when she became pregnant with Noah, but David's heart had already shattered. "You don't get to decide who their father is. You took that away from me," he shouted, his voice thick with hurt. "I love you, David. You are their father in every way that counts," she cried, desperation etched across her face. He shook his head, disbelief washing over him. "No. You don't get to manipulate me like this. You don't get to rewrite our history." The finality in his tone echoed through the room as he declared, "I'm filing for divorce." The air grew cold as Lisa's face crumpled, the weight of his words crashing down on her. David felt a mix of triumph and sorrow as he watched her struggle to grasp the enormity of what was happening. Their marriage, built on trust and love, was disintegrating before his eyes, and yet he felt a strange sense of relief. The truth, as painful as it was, had finally emerged from the shadows. As David turned away, he knew there was no going back. The family he had cherished was forever altered, and he was left to grapple with the aftermath of betrayal and loss. The road ahead would be difficult, but he was ready to reclaim his life, no matter the cost. The days following the confrontation were a blur of emotions for David Mercer. The decision to file for divorce felt both liberating and terrifying. He was consumed by the aftermath of the explosive revelation, yet there was a flicker of hope, a belief that he could finally begin to rebuild his shattered life. As he consulted with a divorce lawyer, he felt a strange sense of clarity amid the chaos. He was determined to protect his children, who remained innocent in all this turmoil. David quickly made it clear to Lisa that trust had been irrevocably broken. They had built a life and business together, but now everything felt tainted. He refused to let her benefit from the cafe they had created side by side. In his mind, selling the business felt like reclaiming his power. It was a painful decision, knowing how much they had invested into it, but he was resolute in his belief that taking it away from her would bring him some measure of justice. As the weeks turned into months, David faced the difficult task of disentangling their lives. He took control of the cafe's finances, making the necessary arrangements to sell. Each step felt like pulling apart the threads of a life he had thought would last forever. He remembered the laughter, the shared dreams, the late nights spent working on their business plan, all of it now tainted by betrayal. Despite the heartache, David's priority remained the boys. He made every effort to maintain a relationship with Ethan and Noah, even as the weight of the divorce loomed over their heads. He found solace in their laughter, the way they ran to him with open arms when he came to visit. He knew that, regardless of their biological connection, he had been their father in every way that mattered. Lisa, on the other hand, struggled to accept the consequences of her actions. Despite David's insistence on maintaining distance, she frequently attempted to reach out, often showing up at the cafe or sending messages filled with regret and pleas for forgiveness. She even suggested having more children together, claiming that their bond was still intact. Each attempt left David feeling more exasperated, as it became painfully clear that she still saw the boys as bargaining chips in her efforts to repair their shattered relationship. He found her behavior appalling and manipulative, a stark reminder of how deeply she had broken his trust. Every time she tried to approach him, he felt a growing sense of resolve, reaffirming his decision to move forward without her. With the divorce finalized and the business sold, David began to envision a new life for himself and the boys. He focused on providing them with a stable environment, determined to shield them from the fallout of their mother's choices. He started a new venture, one that he hoped to pass down to them someday, building a future anchored in love and honesty. In this new chapter, David learned to navigate life as a single father, facing challenges head-on while maintaining hope for a better tomorrow. Though the scars of betrayal would remain, he was committed to creating a life filled with genuine love, laughter, and the promise of brighter days ahead. Nearly a year after the divorce, David Mercer had begun to carve out a new existence for himself and his two sons, Ethan and Noah. The ache of betrayal still lingered in his heart, but he had learned to channel that pain into something productive. He poured his energy into a new business, a small but cozy bakery that would not only serve as a source of income but also a place filled with memories he could create with his children. He envisioned a space where laughter would echo off the walls, flour would dust their faces, and the aroma of fresh pastries would become a comforting constant in their lives. As he set up the bakery, David prioritized ensuring that Ethan and Noah remained an integral part of this new venture. He included them in the baking process, teaching them how to measure ingredients and roll out dough, relishing the joy in their eyes as they made cookies for the first time. They flourished in this environment, their laughter blending with the rhythmic sound of whisks and mixers. David felt alive in these moments, the sense of fulfillment overwhelming any residual sadness he carried. Despite his efforts to move forward, Lisa continued to lurk in the shadows of their lives, attempting to insert herself into the fabric of their family. She would often reach out, expressing remorse and a desire to reconnect. David remained firm in his resolve, communicating only when necessary for the boys' well-being. Her offers to help or reconnect fell on deaf ears. He could no longer see her as the partner he once loved, but rather as a figure who had shattered his world. The pivotal moment came one chilly evening, just before Christmas. Lisa arrived unannounced at the bakery, her face etched with a mix of desperation and hope. "David, I need to talk," she pleaded, her voice trembling as she stepped inside. The sight of her sent a rush of memories flooding back, but he steeled himself, knowing the truth was that she had no place in his new life. "Lisa, I don't think this is a good idea," he said, crossing his arms over his chest, the warmth of the bakery contrasting sharply with the chill of his emotions. "I know I've messed up, but I want to make things right," she implored, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I want to be a part of their lives again." David's heart hardened at her words. He had spent too much time forgiving her actions, too much energy trying to understand the woman who had hurt him so deeply. "You don't get to decide that, Lisa," he replied firmly. "You chose to walk away from this family. You need to respect that my priority is their happiness and well-being." He could see her resolve falter, the facade of control slipping away as she realized that her pleas were falling on deaf ears. "Please, just give me another chance," she whispered, desperation creeping into her voice. "Your choices have consequences," David stated, his voice steady. "I can't have you disrupting their lives again. You need to think about what's best for them." As Lisa turned to leave, the weight of his decision settled heavily in the air. David felt a bittersweet pang as he watched her walk away. It was a moment of finality, a severing of ties that he had long deemed necessary. He understood that this was part of his healing journey, a step towards fully reclaiming his life and prioritizing his children. In the months that followed, David thrived in his new role as both a father and a business owner. The bakery flourished, becoming a cherished local spot where families gathered and memories were created. Ethan and Noah flourished in this environment, their faces bright with joy and love. David had built a life anchored in honesty and compassion, focusing solely on the future and the beautiful possibilities ahead. In his heart, he knew he had emerged stronger, choosing resilience over despair, and love over betrayal.